All right, welcome to Words of the Wise. Today I have Chief John Guttierez with us today. He is the chief at California State University, San Bernardino Police Department. He has over 33 years experience in law enforcement. Welcome to Words of the Wise. I'm so excited to have you here, Chief Guttierez.
Well, thank you very much. I'm excited to be here to be along with you and your guests, your podcasters, and I look forward to our discussion.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it as well. So I know you have over 33 years experience, a ton of time on the job. I would love for you to give us some background. How did you get started in law enforcement and, a little snapshot of how you got where you are today?
Sure. I got started in law enforcement as a young kid. My parents asked me, "Son, what do you want to do? What do you want to be when you grow up?" And I grew up watching shows like Adam 12 and Starsky and Hutch and stuff like that. And so the opportunity to want to join law enforcement was there, but I originally didn't want to be a police officer. I wanted to be a doctor or paramedic. And I was born and raised in South LA. And so, one day the police came knocking on my door one night. And so my parents went down to open the door, and I saw these two police officers standing there, and they were like wearing a long sleeve shirt and a tie, and everything was nice and shiny, and they had their hat on and everything. And I don't know why they were there because we didn't call the police, but they asked some questions. I'm assuming they probably asked, "Did you call the police?" or something like that. But then they kind of quickly went away because we didn't call the police. But for me, that moment, that small segment of being able to watch them from upstairs and kind of see what they were doing, I was like intrigued. I was like, oh, I want to be a police officer. And then I like I said, I grew up watching Adam 12, and kind of like the rest was history. The first opportunity I got, I joined the Los Angeles School Police Department, and now I'm here. I worked for Los Angeles School Police Department. I worked in LA for 25 years. I came out to San Bernardino on a recruitment for a police sergeant at San Bernardino City Schools. I served there for 5 years, and then I came here on another recruitment to California State University San Bernardino Police Department, where I've been since 2021.
That's amazing. I love how one brief moment that you
Mhm.
can remember as a small child really set the trajectory for 33 years on the
Yeah.
job. And
Mhm.
I think that's a testament, and maybe you can tell me too, and maybe this has impacted the way that you've presented yourself over time on the job of, you never know who you're going to impact. Even the
Correct.
smallest interaction with someone can inspire them and motivate them to, choose that path for themselves. Did you ever think of it that way when you're on the job?
I do. I've had an opportunity to mentor a lot of young students and a lot of young folks in our community. And one of the things that strikes me most about that experience is just the fact of my own experience with law enforcement. I had good mentors like Sylvia Myers, who was LAPD, Chris Mora, who was LAPD, Sergeant Caswell, and so many others. And they just took the time to spend time with me and keep me on the right track, keep me out of trouble. And as a young police officer, I remember meeting a young kid. And this young kid, I was working a scalper detail where we were targeting people who were scalping tickets at sporting events. It was part of a crime suppression detail back in those days. And this young kid was selling tickets. And I was like, why are you selling these tickets? It's illegal. You're going to go to jail. And he said, I'm just trying to earn some money to buy some shoes. And so I took a look down at his shoes and I was like, okay, that's pretty bad. And so I said, okay, well, I don't want you to be out here, doing this because now you're committing a crime. They're probably going to arrest you and all this stuff. So I asked him what school he went to. He told me what school he went to. And I asked him, hey, can you do me a favor? Can you come back tomorrow? I'll take these tickets off your hand. Come back tomorrow. And if you be here at this time, I think it was like 3 in the afternoon or 4 in the afternoon. I said, if you're here at this time, I will buy you a pair of shoes. And sure enough, he came back the next day. He met me there, and I think I gave him $100 to go buy a pair of shoes. Now, one would say that's kind of silly because he could have taken your money, or he's going to take your money and never come back. And that's fine. As I believe in God, and I believe that as a Christian, we should be able to help people, and people should be able to lean on us, and we should be able to mentor folks. So I wasn't worried about the loss of the money if that happened. But in this case, the very next day, he came back And then he showed me the shoes that he bought with the money. And the
I love
smile on
that.
his face and the joy on his face was just something that I had never seen before. And so that was before the what is now known as inspiring through the badge, the hashtag is what I was doing and didn't even realize I was doing it. And then one other last point is that when I was a police officer, I was driving down the street one day and I saw this young girl and she was waving. And so as she was waving because she saw the police car coming. And I kind of waved back, but because of the speed, I didn't think she saw me. So I made a U-turn and I went and talked to the little kid, and the little kid was crying. And so I'm like, "Why are you crying?" She was with her mom. I'm like, "Why are you crying?" And she said, "Because I wave at the police all the time and they never wave back." And she had saw that I had waved and I turned around and I stopped to talk to her. And it's those very moments right there that tell me this is what law enforcement is supposed to be about. It's not just, protecting and serving. It's not just arresting and chasing the bad person, which that is part of it, but it's also inspiring people to be their greatest potential. And so I love what I do and where I get to do it.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. I was honestly getting chills while you were saying that because it is, I think it's an important message to remember that you have so much influence to really inspire people and, change the trajectory of their lives and at the
Yeah,
very least give them that brief moment of happiness and
yeah,
joy in maybe a time where they needed it the most. So
yeah.
thank you for sharing that. I
Thanks
want
for
I
asking.
I would love to hear, okay, so you were a police officer at one of the largest agencies in the country,
Mhm.
and you've been on the job for 33 years. What did wellness look like when you first started? What was that experience for you as a young and a new officer in, an agency and in a time where maybe wellness wasn't a thing?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, when I started, there was no such thing as health and wellness. There wasn't even discussions on health and wellness. There was no one even thought about it. I didn't even know where a gym was. The police station didn't have a gym. None of that. But I recall the time I was ambushed. I was working patrol and it was a graveyard shift and I was working a crime suppression detail and I had some other units with me and they went to grab something to eat. And I said, I'll stay in the area. Once you guys come back, I'll go grab something to eat. And I did. And as I went to order something to eat and I got my food, I'm like, I'm not going to eat it there. I'm just going to drive back to the area where my other beat partners are working the crime suppression detail. So if something happens, I'm close to them and I can engage. Well, I'm driving back to the area and I approached the area of Figueroa and Vernon in the city of LA, South LA. And as I'm driving northbound on Figueroa, I could see a group of about 4 or 5 folks crossing the street, or walking down the street, kind of moving briskly across, and they get to Vernon and Figueroa, and I'm watching them, and they walk up to a car. The car's facing southbound in the left turn pocket. He wants to make a left to get onto the freeway, onto the 110 freeway, and so they kind of surround the car like they were trying to steal, like kind of carjack the car. But the light turned green, so the driver kind of stepped on it and just kind of, made the left and got on the freeway. Well, as I crossed the intersection, they kind of quickly ran to the curb. As they ran to the curb, the driver, I'm sorry, the one of the pedestrians rather, looked at me and he said, start yelling out expletive like "mind your effing business." And I'm looking and he's carrying some clothes in his hand. He's carrying like a black sweatsuit with some like black and red Jordans or something like that. And he's like, "Mind your effing business." And I'm just watching him. I'm looking out the driver's window, and just like that, he went into his pocket and he came out firing, just shooting multiple rounds. And the only thing I could do is respond to our training, which is basically, I'm going to basically shield myself in the car, accelerate out of the kill zone, and then tactically redeploy. And that's pretty much what I did. I didn't get hit, but when I looked up, they were running down the street. So the next day, there wasn't like, "Hey, take a couple of days off. Let's get you some resources for mental health, or let's get in the gym and make sure you're fit." Or there was none of that type of stuff. So it wasn't even a discussion. It was like, "Oh, you're good. Okay, We'll see you in briefing tomorrow morning. That's how it was.
Mhm.
It was no, it was not that they didn't care. It just didn't really, the discussions didn't exist. It was a sign of weakness, I think, back then, if they thought, if your supervisor thought you were coming because you were having an issue behind something you saw or did or were involved in, they took it more of a sign of weakness. And then the peer pressure from your peers was like, man, you're weak, you know. I think that was the stigma back then, and that's what people had to, the reality they had to live in this profession.
Sure. And, fast forward today and speaking with you, I know that wellness is a huge part of your life and a priority in your agency. Do you think that it was that one event that made you think about wellness and prioritize it? Was it a series of events? What, made you now think, okay, wellness is something that I really want to, as a leader, prioritize, not just for myself, but for my people?
Yeah, great question. I think it was that event that kind of defined it for me that I needed to be in better shape. And I wasn't out of shape, but I probably wasn't in the best shape. But when you have to lean across a police car and you have all the radio consoles and computers and all of these things, and you're like, oh shoot, I gotta go as far as I can go. If you're not in good physical fit condition, your body is only going to be able to do so much. So what wound up changing it for me was I became, which I was this in the police academy. I kind of when I joined the academy, I wasn't a runner. Once I got in the academy, they make you a runner, and then from there, I became an avid runner. So from that incident, I just continued to run, and I was probably like in the best physical shape of my life. And I didn't know it back then because again, the discussions were not had anything to do with health and wellness or anything. I was just running, and I felt better, and I was in better physical fit condition. Fast forward to today, as chief of police, I became part of a committee in our council of chiefs um, who embraced the president's task force on 21st century policing. And one of the subsets, if you would, in there talks about health and wellness. So each of the chiefs are placed on a committee, and our job is to bring the best ideas, concepts, practices forward so that other chiefs can see these and we can begin to implement those into our department. And so being part of that really opened my eyes to some of the different things and opportunities. Like I had an opportunity to meet and talk with Neil Gang, Chief Neil Gang, who's
Yeah,
a
I know
very
him.
big proponent of health and wellness, and he goes around the world speaking about health and wellness. He is like a true leader with a great vision and foresight in health and wellness. So I had an opportunity to talk to him, but I've also had an opportunity as the leader to say, okay, now the buck starts and stops with me. You're the leader of the organization. What are you going to do? When I came here in 2021, they were not working out. Our facilities are not, our police facility is not conducive to working out. We had a space that we can go to, but that space, officers don't feel comfortable because they're working out with the public. Not that they don't like the public, because we do, but oftentimes you have to secure your gear and all these things. And, you have to leave it in your car, you have to leave it there. So there's always that wonder of, are someone stealing it, or do I have to watch my back in here because someone's going to club me in the head with a weight or something like that?
Sure.
So it just wasn't conducive. So as a leader, one of the things I did was I basically told our team, you can work out on duty. And I told them, you just take an hour. Everyone can't work out at the same time. Coordinate it with your sergeant or the watch commander. And that's kind of what we did because I think health and wellness was important. I talked to Chief Ramsey, and he talks about health and wellness and how important that is. And so that was the way I implemented it. And it's not the best, but it's a way. And we talk about the various different ways. I just approved the Gracie Survival Tactics training for our team. So I sent two people, a sergeant and an officer, to the instructor school. They now come back. They teach this in our department, and our officers love it. They all go in there. They're going on their own time. So it starts with a workout. It starts with like some breathing exercises and stretching exercises, which is important for the mind and the brain to be in sync with their body. And so that's another thing that we've done to try to elevate health and wellness to the forefront.
That's amazing. And um, one of the things that I kind of took from what you said, even, and I don't know if you realize this with your own wellness, how intertwined the physical and the mental are. And the better you feel physically, the better you feel mentally. And I love that you said that. Like you're like, we're focusing on the physical,
Mhm.
but it also directly relates to the mental.
Correct.
And that's one of the things that I have found over the years working in this wellness space is start somewhere, start there. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
if you can present wellness in a way that's well received, and I think almost everyone can get on board with doing something physical,
Mhm.
you know, whether that's mobility or lifting weights or whatever your thing is, running, then you're going to be more receptive to the mental and emotional stuff after. And I know when you and I were talking, you really do prioritize more of like a holistic wellness, not just physical, but mental, emotional, nutritional. So give me a little background on, you know, what you guys are doing aside from the workout on duty for your mental wellness within your agency.
Yeah, so thank you for that. But as you said, when I think about health and wellness or officer wellness, because we had to recoin or um, rewrite the verbiage to make it say organizational wellness, because we wanted this to be organization. So, like my professional staff, they can go and work out, my executive assistant, my budget analyst, like they can all be in because they're all part of this team. So that was one of the things we had to do. But taking a look at, when you think about organizational wellness or officer wellness, however some of the agencies have it, we always think about the physical, like working out, like I'm swollen, I can lift a car. But realistically, it's not just that, it's the mental. It's the mental piece because you see a lot, and officers have to endure. So officers will endure more in 6 months than the average person will endure in a lifetime. And so, how do we keep our mind right? There's breathing exercise, there's eating right, right, eating the right foods. It's most cops like to eat healthy. They like to go to the places where they give you large portions on your plate. But then we sit in a police car for now 12, 15 hours and that we don't really move. Yeah, you get out, take a few steps to a call, but that's not going to be enough to burn off all that food. So the mental health, the mental aspect of breathing techniques, um, there was some that I shared with you. I'm trying to think of the name of it. There's a breathing exercise we done. I forget the name of it that we just do on the leadership aspect, just to
Mhm.
kind of bring our mind into focus, clear out our mind, right, and then make sure that we eat right because that part's good. Make sure we're drinking water. We're not just drinking these power drinks that they're drinking today. We're not just drinking sodas all day. All of those different things affects the mood of the body, the thought process, and then you compound that with these calls. So you have to be in the right medical, mental, and physical condition. And it goes beyond just the workout or the runs or the CrossFit, that type of stuff. It's really eating right. It's breathing exercises, and it's also your mindset.
100%. And I'm shaking my head yes, because I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think that one, breathing techniques are such an easy, simple way to
Mhm.
offload stress, to down regulate after an
Mhm.
incident. Like you said, just bringing everything in and having that mental clarity. And I do think that people don't realize the power of nutrition and what that does to your mood and your energy levels. And so I
Yeah.
love that you touched on that. But even more so, I love that you said that your entire organization is a team. And that is something that I think everyone should get on board with, you know, that you are a team. And I love that you include everybody, your civilian
Mhm.
personnel and your sworn personnel, because I do think that it's important for everyone to feel seen and supported as a team, as an organization. So I'm really glad that that's something that's on, you know, the top of your priority list is
Yeah.
including
No,
everybody.
yeah, no, thank you. I think the only one area that I'm working to really still shore up for our organization is our 911 center.
Mhm.
Because we're short on 911 operators, but I'm actually working to strengthen the staffing level. But as soon as we do that, then they will be able to also decompress, go and work out just like any other officer, or they can go and run and whatever their choice is. Some like running, some like CrossFit, some like the gym. And there's everyone has a different method, but I just encourage them to be doing something and know that it's safe and it's okay, and don't play around. If you're actually working out, work out because you can get hurt if you're not paying attention, if your mind's not right. These things can happen.
Right. And I wanted to ask you a question because we know that right now, especially in larger cities and more populated areas, that we are struggling with staffing. And some of the conversations I've had is that wellness is something that is helping to retain staff. Is that something that you've had any experience in with, offering wellness programs and making sure that your people are seen and supported from a wellness perspective? Is that helping with, keeping everyone who's there
Yeah.
there?
Yeah, absolutely. It is definitely helping to keep those here because think about it. If we have to work a 15-hour shift and then I have to get off, now I have to go and run, or I have to weigh the option of going to work out now, whether it's CrossFit, whether it's breathing, whether it's yoga, whatever my choice is, I have to weigh, do I do that? Or now do I go home to my wife or my husband or my kids who are looking for me
Right.
and when they're looking for me to do other things, or they're looking for me to have dinner with them, or they're looking for me to listen to their conversations, I think I'll go home. So now they've just bypassed the workout altogether. But whenever we can be inclusive of the workout within their work framework, then I think it does keep people together because when they're talking to their peers, whether it's in other agencies or what have you, and they're saying, "Yeah, I get to work out on duty." Now, you get to work. They don't let us work out on duty. I have to work all these extra shifts. They're like they know they're in a good place. I've actually recruited officers from other agencies, or I didn't go and take them. They applied.
Sure.
Let me say it that way. And one of the things that they liked about it is that they liked that it wasn't just continual radio call after radio call after radio call. We do get those, but I think it was the opportunity to have a better work life balance and be able to work out once they hear me say, "Oh, yeah, you can go and work out." I came by a few weeks ago around the holiday time, just prior to Christmas, and I'm driving down the street and I'm looking at my officer who's working, and he's running down the street doing his thing. And it made me so happy to see him going off to do his run. And he was happy knowing that I wasn't going to come back saying, "Hey, what are you doing out of uniform? Aren't you, So we want to make sure that we're inclusive and we're mindful and that we care. And I think if you care about the people on your team, that goes well beyond this, then you'll make that sacrifice because, crime's always going to be afoot. Um, we can always find a million excuses not to do something, but let's take the excuses away and let's help them go into their retirement a lot healthier. They're not going into retirement like because they have an injury, because guess what? They get to work out, they get to stay physically fit, their mind is clear. They get to go home and be a better husband or wife because they're not snappy because their mind is clear. Versus they get home and the person they don't get the compassionate police officer, they get the officer on the beat. And that's what our wives or our husbands and your children shouldn't get. They need that compassionate officer because if you see an officer in the field, they're so nice to the public, right? And then they get home and they're snappy with their family. They get the beast side of the officer, and that's not what they need. They need the compassionate side of the officer at home. So
100%. And I heard this saying recently that was people deserve the best of you, not the rest of you. And I think that
good.
like touches on what you just
Yeah,
said. And I think that it is everyone's ultimate goal to be the best version of themselves
yeah,
for their loved ones, whether
yeah,
that's your friends or your family. And then beyond that, what you said is to have a long and successful retirement after this career.
yeah,
I don't think that there's anyone out there listening to this that's like, yeah, I just want to retire and not be able to move, or I want to retire and have health issues and,
yeah,
not have a long life after and only have like 4 years or 5 years after.
yeah,
Like, no one wants that. Everyone wants that longevity. And to your point, I think it's important to think about those things and to be more proactive about it. And it starts now, and it's small, actionable things, like you said, so that you can set yourself up for success. And one of the things, so I think one of the things that I hear is important, and you can tell me what you think because everyone has different, perspectives. But I do think it's important for people to connect with their personal why and why wellness is important for them, because I think that that changes person to person. And I think it also changes throughout your life. What's important to you now might be different in, 5 or 10 years. And I heard you say earlier that earlier in your career, your why was to be the most fit that you could for the job so that you could be safe and successful on the road. Has your why changed since then? Now that you are the chief of an organization, do you have a different why when it comes to wellness and, why you're prioritizing? You know, is it
Yeah.
your organization, your family? Like, has that changed over the 33 years?
I think the why is still the same. I would say that I added an addition to the why. And in the addition to the why is making sure that the people that trust me as their leader understand that number one, I care about them. And I truly care about them and I would do nothing to harm them, but everything to protect them. And I think that when you take a look at being a young police officer, no one tells you any of these things. You're just so happy. You're like a brand new shiny nickel. You got a badge, you got a gun, you just got out the academy. You feel like you can race a Mustang and beat it. And so you get out there and you want to arrest the world. And no one stops to say, let's talk to you about your health and wellness. Let's talk to you about saving for retirement. Let's talk to you about what health insurance looks like for you and your family. So you can make critical decisions that truly impact your life early on. If I would have known this stuff back then, I probably would have been had a different process. But then again, it wasn't meant for me to know back then. God showed it to me now. And so in the now, he wants me to show it to other people. And that's why it's become very important for me.
Yeah, and I do think that I can relate to that of like sometimes the things that you didn't have or you didn't know are now the things that,
Mhm.
you can now share those words of wisdom.
Yep.
You can now say, "Hey, I didn't have these things, and this is what happened.
Mhm.
But now we do, and now we're going to do better, or I'm going to make sure I prioritize you
Mhm.
because you have seen both sides
Yeah.
of the coin in a sense." So
Yes.
I appreciate that. And I think that, coming from leadership, saying like, I genuinely care about you and your wellness is such an important message for, anyone coming up in the ranks to realize like, yeah, like they care about us,
Yeah.
and it's authentic.
That's true. I mean, as you're talking and I'm thinking about it, I'm inspired just by my executive assistant. I mean, she's young, but she's a beast. She runs, I mean, religiously. I mean, I can't say anything more about it. She's literally just a beast. And every time I see her, I'm inspired by her workouts and what she's doing. She's in great physical fit condition, but then she goes home to her family and she can love on them because after a hard day, if she has a hard day here, she don't feel that way because she's going for a run and she gets home. Her lungs are clear, her mind is clear. She's in great physical fit condition, great health, and she gets to be her best, as you said, for her family. So this is great.
And I think that, and tell me how you feel about this, but I do think that it takes only a couple people to lead by example for the momentum to build. And other people can see, just like you said, like you are looking at her and you're like, I want to be like that. And the
Yeah,
more that, people see you doing stuff, then they're going to want to also do those things. I think there
yes,
is a little bit of like FOMO, of like, I don't want to be the one that's not doing
yes.
that. So would you say that one, it sounds like you guys talk about wellness a lot, which I think is really important, but also
Mhm.
leading by example. Do you think that that has been the key for you getting buy-in and creating a culture of wellness within your organization?
I think so because even for myself, there's times in the morning where my troops would see me drive to the station, not really physically to the station, but near, and they'll see me running at 4 or 5 in the morning. And I know they're like, there goes the chief, right? He's running. So it's in a way, I'm modeling the way forward. And kind of like what you said, I think going back to Los Angeles, when I worked for the Los Angeles School Police Department, I would go and run around 3, 4 in the morning every single morning, and I would run by myself. But then they called me Goot back then, and they still do. But they would say, "Hey, Goot, can we run with you?" And before you know it, it went just for me as the one solo runner to now I have about 15, 20 people running every morning. We're running hills, we're running down streets. And even though I'm no longer there today, they are still running today, that early in the morning. It was just something that I was doing, and it just caught on. Great runners like Oscar Soto, Abel Contreras, Chief Aaron Prozardzowicz, who are there. Those folks are still running. and there's a whole group of them, and they put it on their social media, and that is what inspires me to continue running. Not that I did anything, it's just that they started joining me, and it has never died out. They're still running today.
And what an important message. And I feel like it all ties back into the little you as a
Mhm.
kid, being inspired by those two police officers and that setting to the trajectory. It's like you never know how much impact you have on others by leading by example.
Yeah,
And I think that that's such an important message for everyone that's listening. Like, it starts with you. And you can inspire someone who then will inspire others. And that's when the momentum starts. And that's
yeah,
when we start to see that positive change. And you do have the ability to make an impact on other people's lives and their
yeah,
wellness. And it could be
yeah,
just as simple as getting up. I mean, it's easier said than done, I know, but getting up and running at 4 o'clock in the morning, and now, years and years later, it's created a movement where people are
yeah,
now it's still inspired by that. I think that is
yeah,
so awesome.
yeah. No, thank you.
All right, I have one final question
All
for
righty.
you. And this is, we talked about this before. This is why I started this podcast. I've had so many conversations with, various leaders who have always said, like, I wish I would have known this earlier in my career and it may have XYZ. And so I would love to hear from you. What are your words of wisdom for the future or newer generation when it comes to wellness? Maybe something that you wish you would have known earlier in your career or advice that you wish you would have taken earlier in your career, what would those words of wisdom be?
Wow. You know, the words of wisdom, I would say, embrace mental health, physical health, um, organizational wellness. Embrace it early on. Don't just allow it to be because you want to get through the police academy and then you just stop. Um, and then I would say take time to delve into those things that will make your life better for you and your family. And kind of like you touched on, going home and just being a better partner for your husband or your wife, um, because your mind is clear, and get them involved. You can do exercise with them. You can do um, the I forget what they call it, the mindful treatment or whatever it's called. There's different names for it, but you can do those things and you can be inclusive of your family. Don't just do it with your friends or your partner's going to be. You want your family to be healthy too, because sometimes when this department turns its back on you, all you have is your family. So let's just stay professional, stay focused, embrace organizational wellness and physical fitness. Go to a gym near you, subscribe to one. Or if you don't, maybe follow your podcast. And I'm sure there's some great workout tips and things you can do in terms of eating and working out to really make yourself better and share the knowledge with someone else so that they know it is okay to work out. It is okay to be in a great mindset. We don't want our folks to suffer and start to ideate because there's no outlet. We're just inputting everything. We don't have no release. And today, the officers today, they're a lot younger, which I was young when I started, but they have no release. Everything is just, scroll on the social media. So we have to get them off those devices, get them out there, someone in the organization, take the lead. I don't care if it's just a few laps around the roof, a few laps around the block, get it started and keep it going. You never know where it's going to go.
Great words of wisdom. Thank you so much. Chief Gutierrez, I really appreciate your time and your words of wisdom. Thank you so much for being on my podcast. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. And hopefully I'll come back one day when you have something else.
100%. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you.